Today I'm going to be doing a basic lighting class. It's not going to be very in-depth, or it's going to give you the basics to get started. The best way I found with lighting is to experiment and try it yourself, okay? But what we're going to do today, ignore the fire, we're going to change this over here into this. Okay, as you can see, it's got light in it. Now, the first thing we need to do, I touched on this in one of my other videos actually. If you can see here, this is another mistake that a lot of people make. How that just looks so flat. There's no definition to the corners. Everything's been ticked unlit. If you're going to be doing lighting, don't tick unlit on anything. So we'll go on here, we'll untick it like that. Same with this side. As you can see, it's gone darker straight away, and the ceiling and the floor, because we don't want them unlit. Okay, now what we need to do first of all is we need to create a trigger box. Now the trigger box is going to be the area in which the lighting is going to go in. Okay, so we'll create a trigger box like that. Now what we need to do, everything that you want to be like touched by the light, that sounds really crazy, but anyway, it needs to be inside that box. So because we're on the ground here, we're on the basic street vacant that I was using the other day, we need it to go into the ground like so, and then it's still not bigger than the walls. We need to make it bigger than the walls on the floor and everything. So we'll make it wider. So as you can see, it's outside the edge. We need to make it wider that way and the other way as well. Now it needs to be a little bit taller, as you can see, like that. So everything that we want lit and touched by the light inside is inside that box. Okay, so what we need to do now on the trigger box, still go onto the script, scroll down to create light area and click it. Now everything has gone black, which is good. It means that everything that you've put out prop wise is within the box. Okay, now we need to name this light area, and we'll call it, well, I'm going to just call it demo. Okay, now in here there's two different boxes. Okay, now there's ambient color. Now ambient light is the light that's sort of all around you all the time. Okay, so it'll just cover everything. So if I stand in the middle of here, we'll turn up the ambient light. Now the first column is the red, so we put 50 in the red. We could always just leave it like that and have a red light in there. The next one is yellow, so we'll put 50 in there, so it gives us a sort of yucky greeny colour. And then the next one is the blue, and we'll put 50 in there, which makes a sort of white light. Obviously it's not very bright. If we turned all these up to 200 each, it would go very bright like that, but we don't want it too bright, so we'll leave it at 50. Okay, now with the lighting, you can really pretty much have any colour you wanted. So you know, you could turn this one down and the red up, so you get a pink colour. You know, you can pretty much, by changing these numbers here, get pretty much any light you want. I've actually got a list of all the different colours. Okay, but for now, for what we're doing here, we'll leave it at white. So that's 50, 50, 50 straight across, and that creates your ambient lighting. Now the directional color, we're not really going to use that, but I'll briefly tell you what this does. Okay, so say we put in 100 there, that gives us a red light going straight down. Now we can change which direction it's in. Let's see if I can get myself stood in the middle. So if we turn these buttons here, now that's going from the bottom up. You can see on my chin there and there, you know, it's red light going straight from the bottom. We could make it go left and right as well by changing these. Okay, so you can see what that does, but for our purposes we're not going to be using that today. We don't need to. So we'll just put these all back on 0, and we'll just stick to this. Now, okay, now we've got the trigger box in place and the ambient, we can click off the trigger box. Okay. What we're going to do now is create our light source. Now, it's basically like putting a light bulb in a lamp. Okay, now the prop I use to do this is the Paxil pill. Now, not that huge. What we're going to do, I'm going to make it a lot smaller. I'm just going to make it 0.1, 0.1, 0.1 straight across, so it's just a small pill. The reason I use the Paxil pill, I mean you can use whatever you want, but the reason I use the Paxil pill is because if you're making a big place and you're putting lighting in and there's lighting all over, they're easier to find, because I don't use the Paxil pill for anything else apart from lighting. Okay, so we need to put this Paxil pill near the light source, which in this case is this lamp here. Now we don't want it touching, and what I find is if we pull it just a bit far away from the wall and place it about there, can you see? Put it about there, and it's about there. Okay, now on the Paxil pill, we'll go to script, scroll down to the create light, and what we need to do in here in region is put the name of the lighting area, and in this case, as I named it, demo. So we'll put demo in there. Now straight away that's lit up. Can you see it's lit the lamp up, it's lit the chair up, the walls are different. Now again, with the colour, you can change the colour to anything you want. In this case we're going to just stick with white, so it's 255 all the way across. Now the intensity is the brightness basically, so if we put in 5000 it makes it really really bright, but what we need it for, I'll put in about 1000, and that's quite a nice amount. Okay, now as we can see, the lamp's lit up, the ceiling's lit up nice, the walls. Now the only thing that isn't lit, and you can see this, is the floor. Now I don't know why, but for some reason some props don't work properly with lighting. The 3x3 sign is one of them props. Now what you have to do with that is rotate it. You've just got to flip it over. At the minute it's on 90 degrees to make it flat. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put in 270 and flip it over, and that side seems to work fine, and there's your lighting on the floor. I don't know why it's like that. I found that out by accident. Okay, but I do use the 3x3 sign quite a lot, so you know I have to mess around with it and get it to work if I'm putting lighting in. Okay, now that is basically it. The only other thing I would put in, and I've got one here, is a couple of shadows. Now I'm going to be covering shadows a bit more in depth, and I'm going to show you how to make them and stuff like that. But really, for a beginner, a basic fuzzy square, I call it, is brilliant, and you can use it everywhere. And this shadow barely takes any, you know, processing. It's such a tiny image, it doesn't really register on your video card. It's very, very small. So again, you know, putting shadows in, it takes a little bit extra work, not a lot to be honest, especially if it's basic shadows like this, but it makes a whole lot of difference. Now to me, without a shadow, let me just move that out of the way a sec so you can see. Without shadows, yes, it looks okay, but it looks way better with shadows. It just makes such a difference. Okay, so we're going to grab this shadow and we're going to put it under the chair. Now think about how the shadows work. The light source is over here. You can see the Paxil pill still there. So we need the shadow to go like that, away from the Paxil pill, under the chair. Now what I would also do is put one on the wall there. So we'll clone that, rotate it so it's upright, and we'll put it against this wall. Now as you can see, it's disappearing. Now that is because this wall behind has got transparency on it. Translucency, I think it's translucency, yeah. It's got texture translucent on it. Okay, if it was a solid wall, that wouldn't happen. Excuse me. So what we have to do with the back wall is turn up the rendering. Now, how you do that, let me put the sign against it so you'll see it come into, you'll see it come out of the, come out when I change the rendering. Okay, so the shadows disappeared. So what we do, because this wall is behind the shadow, we turn this up on the render right at the bottom of the state tab, render priority number 1, and that makes the shadow pop back out. Excuse me. Oh, sore throat. Sorry about that. Right. Okay, so there's a shadow. It's a bit high up, so we'll just pop it down a bit. And obviously we need one under here. Okay, so put one under there, and I'll also put one on the wall on there as well. Make it a bit shorter. Now again, that's going to start disappearing at certain angles, which it make me a liar. This render might already be up. We'll have a look. No, it's not, but we'll turn it up anyway. Okay. Right. Now, the last thing we need to do is make the pill invisible. And that's it. It's very, very easy to do. It's very basic, but easy to do. The best thing, as I said, to do with the lighting is practice. Just do something like this. Try it out yourself. As long as you've got the basics, all it is playing around with the numbers to get different colours and different brightnesses and things like that. Okay. Now, the last one I'm going to show you is this. This is an old one. I've built a fire. So what I need to do is create another trigger box. Okay, we're going to place it around the fire. I'll make it a bit taller and a bit wider. Okay, now on the script we're going to change it, create light area, and instantly I go dark. Now the reason the street hasn't gone dark is because this is already there. You'd have to cover it if you wanted, you know, it to be affected. But the street has its own light and it won't go darker. Okay, right, so we're going to put in there the name of it as fire. Ambient, we're not going to have it very bright, so I'm just going to 20, 20 and 20. Now we need to let that go, and what we're going to have is another Paxil pill. I'm going to make it smaller again. Oops, 0.1, 0.1, 0.1 all the way across. Now I'm going to float this above the fire, about there. If you can see that, yeah. So it's about in the middle, just above the fire. Okay. Now, what I need to do is on the Paxil pill, on the script, go down to create light. We're going to make it 3000, and if we type in there fire, you can see instantly that it's lit up, but it's white. We don't want it white, we want it orange or red colour. Okay, so for that we need to get rid of the blue. Now that just looks like wee. I've never seen a fire that colour, so we need to turn this down. So we'll turn the red to about 200, the yellow to about 150. Try that. Whoops, 150. Now that's getting there. It's still a bit yellow, so make that 100. Now that's a nicer colour. We could even go a bit less, so there we go. So it's quite a nice colour. We can turn the intensity down a bit as well. Okay, and that is basically it. Now if I walk out of the box, I'm instantly back into the light. So, you know, as I said, if you wanted it to be a bigger area, we could make this whole street affected by that one fire. We could do that, but we'd have to make the trigger box bigger to cover everything. So whatever you want to light up needs to be inside the trigger box. Okay, now the only other thing I'll tell you is that if you're building a house and you're using the trigger box, you can only have up to about 9 lights in there. Sorry, I've got an ever such a dry throat tonight. So you've got like up to about 9, 10's kind of pushing it. I would always stop at about 9 light sources, i.e. the Paxil pills. Just make that one invisible. So if you're building a massive place and you want to put lighting all over, what I tend to do is create different trigger boxes for different areas. Like one of my recent properties, the Rockside, I had the beach 1, beach 2, outside 1, pool area, and upstairs in the house and downstairs in the house. I ended up with about 6 or 7 different trigger boxes for different areas, and it works. It's difficult to do when you're first starting. Try and stick to the basics when you first start out, but it's, like I say, it's worth experimenting. And that's basically it for the basic lighting class. I am going to go a bit more into depth with the shadows and show you how to make them. I'm going to use Photoshop, but you know, you can use any sort of texture creating program, you know, anything like paint.net, something like that. But that's it. So I will say goodbye and I will see you again soon. Bye.